Okay, I heard that. Recording in progress.
Nice. So, welcome everyone to Radically Reframing Aging. My name is Deanne Gaia, and I am the creative energetic orchestrator of my own business and brand, Gaia Fit, and I'm the creator of the Gaia Fit Surfers method, and I specialize in helping really women 65 to 85 age optimally and enjoy their life to the fullest for as long as they possibly can, in a nutshell. So today I'm going to share with you, I'll give you a little overview of the experience just so you kind of know what to expect. I'm going to keep it to about a half an hour and then leave plenty of time for questions and answers. I'm going to share a little bit of my story, how I started with this whole journey of optimal aging and fitness and longevity and being interested in helping people to make the most of their lives. And then we're going to go through why age is truly just a number and the 7 types of aging. Many people don't know that there are more than one type of aging. And then we're going to look at some of the people who live the longest and have the longest health spans across the world and see what they have in common. And then we're going to talk a little bit about mindset and how simply changing your mindset around aging can add up to 7.5 years to your life. And then I'm going to offer an invitation to you to join an upcoming program that I have if it sounds interesting to you. So I'm going to start, as I said, with a little bit of my story. And so it all began actually when I was 4 years old. I was a little girl growing up in Indiana in an apartment on the IU campus, and I was extremely close to my mom. And my mom would turn on the television set. We had a little black and white TV set, and she would just adjust the antennas just so. And on the screen would appear Jack LaLanne on our black and white TV, and he would show up and he's like, okay, he would talk all about the importance of good nutrition, and he would talk about the importance of exercise, and together we would take our chairs and my mother and I would do all the sorts of calisthenic exercises he would have us do, swinging the legs and plies and all sorts of things. And for me as a little girl, that kind of planted the seed for me with exercise. And then my mom actually ended up dying of a rare brain tumor before my 8th birthday. And this also contributed to what I'm offering now and why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, because she died at the age of 32, and it really struck me at that time as a little girl and throughout the rest of my life that, you never know how much time you're going to have. And, life is not promised to everybody, and so many people take it for granted. And for me, I didn't want to take my life for granted. I didn't want to, think that, oh, I'm going to wait for someday. And I wanted to do my best to, live each day to the fullest and explore human potential and mind, body, fitness, and all of that. And I also think that because she died, I was driven to initially become a doctor. I thought I'd become a medical doctor, and I think it was to help prevent other people from dying. And what I ended up not being the candidate for medical school, and that's a whole nother story. But what I decided to do when I decided not to go into traditional medicine was I decided to figure out what do you do to keep people healthy, to keep them out of the hospital and keep them free from disease. And that really led me down the path of exploring nutrition and exercise physiology at first. And then I became more interested in Buddhism and yoga and some of the theories and ancient wisdom traditions around suffering and what are the causes of suffering, how do we alleviate suffering, and how do we live in the present moment and make the most of each moment. So that's kind of a little bit of my history. And so then, interestingly, One of my first jobs that I had was working at the White House Athletic Center under George Bush. And one of the first events we had was the Presidential Physical Fitness and Sports Month. And they had all these dignitaries on the west lawn of the White House. And there was Arnold Schwarzenegger. But who did I see across the lawn in his blue suit, just like I remember him, was Jack LaLanne. And so I ran right over to him and I said, Jack, you look fantastic. And he's like, well, I feel fantastic. And this was like probably 25 years, almost 25 years later, since I saw him on the TV as a little girl. And he just dropped down. He did like 12 perfect one-arm push-ups and he jumped right back up. And at this time, he was 78 years old. And it just hit me. I was like, this is what's possible if someone exercises and watches their nutrition throughout their life. This is what you can, be like at the age of 78. And so that kind of started me off on my mission to help more people to realize the importance of fitness and what aging can look like, right? So if it's possible for Jack, it could be possible for anyone because, it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or how much money you have or any of that. We all have the same physiological, makeup. We have the same DNA. We have the same, musculature, essentially. So much of each of us is the same. And so if he could maintain or improve his fitness as he aged, so could anybody else. So brings me to age is just a number, and it really is just a number. So I'm going to just give you a couple of examples why this is true. So one example is midlife is now defined as people anywhere between 35 and 75 years old. So that's a huge range. It's a 40-year age range. And what they see that makes the biggest difference is not the number that you are. So that's chronological age, is the actual number you are, how many years you've been on the planet. But what's more important is your biological age or your physiological age, which is the actual age of your cells, every cell in your body, every cell that makes up every organ that you have. And all those cells are dependent on activity and what you kind of put into your body, into your mind, into your spirit. And so you can have someone, say, who's 35 or 40 who has been sedentary all their life, who's overweight, who doesn't exercise, who has a terrible diet, who maybe binge watches terrible TV or things, has a very stressful lifestyle, no passion in their life, and they can have actually the physiological or biological age of a 60 or 70-year-old. Whereas you could have a 60 or a 70-year-old who does exercise, who does take care of themselves, who does maybe have passion in their life. They do some work that's meaningful. They're spiritually connected. They have faith, family, all these other factors that we see impact health span. And this person can have the biological age of a 35-year-old. So really, age is just a number. That's one. And two, the great news is you are never too old to start. And because of neuroplasticity, our cells are always turning over all the time, creating new neural pathways. And so we can start at any age and improve your cardiovascular fitness. We can improve your muscle strength. We can improve the health of your bones, your connective tissue. We can improve your mobility, your flexibility, your agility, your hand-eye coordination. We can use exercise to stimulate the brain. When I say that, it's like, for instance, coordinating a series of movements, like seven movements, and then trying to memorize like which one comes first, and then also coordinating, parts of the body together, gets you to use the right and left hemispheres of your brain and coordinate the activity of the brain better. So anyway, it's really exciting. So you can start at any age, and I can give you stories if you want to hear stories, but you can start at any age and you can actually turn back your biological clock as your chronological clock goes forward. So you can start at 79, a program, and actually at like 87 or 88 have a higher quality life than you did at 79. And then epigenetics is really all about the factors that go beyond our genetic expression and the factors that contribute to the expression of certain genes. And again, a lot of that has to do with stress and exposure, environmental exposures, whether it be to toxins or food or water, or, again, any type of input to the system is going to affect the genes, and we can alter that positively or negatively. And then the last piece is what's really important, rather than like lifespan, is really health span. So what we're looking to do with optimal aging and radically reframing aging is to increase the number of years that you can live a high quality life full of choices and possibility and independence. That's what we're looking to do. So just to kind of expand upon that, there are 7 types of aging. So again, people might not know this. So we just discussed a little bit about physiological age, which is the age of our cells and every tissue in our body and how that's changeable. The next factor, which I think is super interesting, is subjective age. And subjective age is how old you think you are and what you believe is possible for you at the age you believe you are. So you could, like, use myself as an example. I have a very childlike kind of curiosity and way of going about things, and I actually love spending time with children. And so when I think about my age, like, I do not identify as a 61-year-old female. I really, I don't know. I would say, like, if I had to mentally and psychologically, with all the experience I've had, I would say yes, 61, maybe even 71. I don't know. I've had a lot of life. But as far as physiologically, I would say like in my mid 30s is how I feel, and definitely what I believe possible. I believe almost anything is possible for me. And if it's not possible today, I believe it could be possible in the future with the right training and the right motivation. So the next type of age is functional age. And functional age really has to do with what they call activities of daily living. So ADLs, which are just really practical things like carrying groceries, say if you live on the second floor, up a flight of stairs. Can you do that independently? If you had to walk to the store or walk to church, could you do that independently? Do you still drive? Can you lift a bag and say if you had to put it way on a high shelf, could you take something from here to here? Or if you're traveling on an airplane, could you take your own bag that was, say, heavy and put it into the carry-on compartment above, or would you have to get help with that? So functional age is all about your ability to independently do the basic kind of things in life. And then psychological age is really looking at your brain, and not only how much, say, cognitive decline you have or plaque buildup or effects of inflammation in your brain, but also has to do a lot with use it or lose it. So they see that the more that people continue to learn new languages or learn new information, keep their brain stimulated, that more parts of the brain remain active as you age. And then interestingly, there are some parts of the brain in psychological aging which actually get better as we age, which so many people don't realize that. And so some types of thinking that improve with aging are holistic thinking, so our ability to use both our right and left hemispheres of our brain, the corpus callosum, which connects the two hemispheres, actually those fibers get stronger, so we're able to use both parts of the brain. And then because we're able to use both parts of the brain, we're able to think in a more kind of global, connected, interconnected way, and we're actually able to have what is it called? Cognitive flexibility, which is kind of different ways of approaching a problem. So if kind of one strategy doesn't work, we are able to tap into some other strategies. And this is not what's seen when people are much younger. It's seen, it actually peaks in your 60s, which I think is interesting. And then social age is again related to kind of who you identify with, socialize with, who are your connections. And it turns out, it probably makes sense, but your social age, if you kind of hang around with people who are your age and have the same kind of the like-mindedness, like-spirited, like-heartedness, you're still acting or engaging in active lifestyles, doing a lot of stuff that's interesting and engaging and stimulating, then that'll contribute to a positive social age. If, on the other hand, you associate with, say, either older people or same age people, or just people in general who have maybe a very negative view of the world, who just see aging as this long, slow rotting process, that nothing is ever going to get better, that, it's just this period decline and you have no choice in the matter, that's just how it is. You hang around with people like that, that impacts your social age. And the same is with spiritual age, very similarly. Again, who you kind of hang around with, who you plug into spirituality, similar communities is important. And again, for myself, with wisdom traditions, Buddhism and yoga in particular, it encourages you to always be evolving and growing, kind of reaching toward your highest potential, your highest self, and to actually take the practices that you learn, which maybe seem simple if you're in a yoga studio or in a temple or in a meditation retreat, but you get out into the real world, particularly our world today, where the rubber meets the road. It's not so easy always to practice, being calm and being responsive and not getting triggered by things going on or other people's reactions. So it's good to have like-spirited people to kind of connect with. And then the last type of aging is the number, which really, as we've talked about, has very little to do with your health span, and so it's just a number. So what are some of the secrets of people who are super agers? When I say super agers, they're like people who have health spans and lifespans that go into their 90s, and then same with people who are in the blue zones. And it kind of taps upon all the types of aging I just talked about, but just makes it into now daily habits. So it's really lifestyle habits. So what do these people do? Movement or exercise is part of their everyday. And for many of these people, it's not like a traditional exercise program where they go to the gym necessarily. It's more natural, like, they walk to the park, they walk with their families, they spend time outdoors, they garden, they hike, they ski, whatever it is, but there's movement in their everyday life. They're not sedentary. Related to kind of spiritual aging and psychological aging, these people have passion and purpose. So they have a deep sense of, this is why I'm living my life. This is what's important to me. This is the contribution I'm looking to make. This is the legacy I want to leave. And that is very important to them. They have minimal stress in their lives. And so a lot of these people or communities tend to have more simplistic lives. They're not nearly as busy and bombarded with so much as we are here in the United States. I find it interesting that one of the happiest countries in the world from year to year always it comes up is Bhutan. And Bhutan is like locked in mountains, and they have a very simple lifestyle, and there's a lot of movement, and spirituality is very important, and connection. They have so many things, but one thing that they don't have is a lot of stress. And so the other things, people in these communities, they eat mindfully, they eat slowly, they appreciate their food and what it means, and they typically stop when they're about 80% full. So they don't just, kind of wolf things down quickly and mindlessly, and then realize they, had a whole carton of Ben and Jerry's or a whole bag of chips or whatever it might be. They eat a whole food, plant-based diet on the whole. Um, they're spiritual, they have faith, they have connection, whether it's with a religion or whether it's with some other type of faith-based, I'm thinking like indigenous people have connection with the earth and kind of a different type of faith, but it really doesn't matter. It's more of this belief in or a connection with a higher power, source, the divine, just some greater organizational force. And then these people have strong connections with family, friend, community, and they typically have tribes that they vibe with. And so that is really important. And if you don't have strong family or friend or community connections, inherently, then it's always suggested that you look and try to find a tribe that you can vibe with. So here we go. So how can you add 7.5 years to your life just by changing your mind? So again, this kind of pulls it all together. So the first thing is kind of going back to the subjective aging, how old you think you are, who you hang out, the social aging, all these things. So people who look at aging as a positive thing, like still having so many possibilities and potentially even having more possibilities as you age than you did at a younger age, because now many times people are reinventing their lives. They now have time freedom that they never had before. There may be, empty nesters. Their children now are living independently, so they're not mothers or they're not caretakers any longer. Maybe they're retired, so you don't have a job. So now you have this time freedom that you didn't have before, and many times people have the financial resources. So if you have your health, then you can just look at your bucket list and start saying, okay, what do I want to do next? Having curiosity, like always looking for new things, looking for things that can bring you joy, learning a new word every day, maybe, or, looking at the stars, or like this week we have a full lunar eclipse coming up, which is supposedly rare, and the moon's going to be red. So maybe like looking into that with childlike awe and wonder. Living as much as possible in the present moment, not dwelling in the past, not ruminating in the past, but doing your best to learn from the past, to learn what the lessons were, to learn from the experiences, and to use all of that information as kind of fertilizer for your growth and evolution, and to see life as this series of births and deaths. Like so many people think it just begins here and ends here. And if you really look at your life, it's not really like that. It's kind of more of a cycle of births and evolution. And then you give up certain things and you transform, from your 20s into the 30s. Life is a certain way, and then things happen and change and evolve. And again, you might kind of leave behind a certain life and reinvent yourself, and then it's like a rebirth or a reinvention. And I love the idea of thinking of it like midlife metamorphosis, and thinking of what happens to a dragonfly or a butterfly, in the chrysalis. When they go, they're not a caterpillar anymore, and they're in this mucky, dark space. It's kind of like the womb that we were in initially with our moms. And so to just think of it as a really fertile place of evolution. And then the last piece of adding some years to your life is, again, connecting with people who share this kind of growth mindset, and to find communities where you can get that accountability and connection. And this brings me to my invitation, which is, if this subject matter is interesting to you, I would love to have you join me starting on March 20th, the spring equinox, for Beyond Aging Gracefully. It will be an 8-week exploration together that is really a hybrid experience that combines some online lessons and PDF downloads and various kind of activities that I have. That you can access, and then you have lifetime access anytime you want it. It takes about maybe 20 or 30 minutes to do, so not a lot of time. And you do that on your own. And then we meet as a group every Sunday for 90 minutes. And in that 90-minute Zoom call, we go over any questions people have. I do my best to customize each lesson to really meet your needs. We discuss your goals, what you're looking to do and accomplish by the end of the program. And then it also is a wonderful time for the women to connect and support each other. And it's a community where there's no judgment. We just really practice active listening. There's no advice that's given unless someone asks for an opinion or some feedback. It really is just this open listening and support with no judgment at all, just this freedom, and everything is completely confidential, of course. And then in addition to that, each month I offer each woman a 60-minute one-on-one call with me, again, to kind of iron out any challenges she might be having. So my idea is to have 20 max women together, so a small group of like-spirited, like-hearted and minded women to really take an 8-week journey together, and at the end of the 8 weeks really have some great new practices in place, and kind of a reinvented life, or the beginnings of this new life that you're looking to create. So I'd love to have you join me if this sounds interesting, and you could always reach out to me at dcgaUYA@gmail.com, or feel free also to text me 203-525-2545, and we could have a conversation even and just explore any of your concerns or comments. So I